The story begins with Dr. Andrew, who is shown to be an American, and at this time, he appears quite upset. This is because one of his patients died due to not receiving heart surgery in time. Just then, a colleague of Dr. Andrew comes over and informs him that a terrorist group is trying to capture Americans and that they have infiltrated this area as well. They have already found out that he is here. Hearing this, Dr. Andrew goes straight to his wife, who is also a teacher and a very kind-hearted person. She teaches African children and is eager to help humanity. Dr. Andrew tells her, "We need to leave this place. We can't stay here any longer because the terrorist group will kill us." But his wife, still hopeful, asks, "Can't we make things right? Can't we talk to the terrorists and reason with them? Maybe the situation will improve." To this, Andrew responds, "My medical equipment has been stolen, and one of my patients has already died. Things in Africa will never get better. Leaving is our best option." Then they leave for a small airport in the village, which was nearly deserted because it was in the middle of a desert. There was only one plane, which they had to board to escape from there. The condition of the plane wasn't great either, and to make matters worse, the pilot, who was very greedy, wanted to take as many people and as much luggage as possible. Among the passengers, all of whom were Americans, there were 3 people who wanted to leave as well. One of them was named Max, and the others were his friends, including a black man who was very kind-hearted. Their leader was also with them. Before leaving, Andrew's wife spoke to her African companion, Alamila, one last time. Alamila, with sadness, said, "I'm sorry that you have to leave because of the terrorists in our country." Andrew then approached the pilot, whose name was Grant. Obviously, Grant was greedy, which is why he was demanding a lot of money from them. Andrew recognized him and said, "Aren't you the same pilot who was supposed to bring in medical supplies? Do you know how many of my patients died because those supplies didn't arrive? And the equipment I was supposed to send to America got stolen as well." Andrew explained to him that treating humanity this way wasn't right, that it was a terrible thing to do. Andrew and his wife, being such good people, always wanted to help humanity and hoped that their words might make an impact on Grant, hoping that Grant would be inspired to become a better person. The situation continued. Since there wasn't much room on the plane for extra luggage, the greedy Grant once again said, "You've only paid for your seats, not for the luggage, so you can't take your belongings." But after the passengers insisted several times, he finally agreed and said, "All right, fine. You can take your luggage, but you'll have to hold it on your lap." With that settled, everyone boarded the plane. The conditions inside the plane were terrible, but they had no other choice but to escape. Otherwise, the next plane wouldn't arrive for another week. They didn't want to stay here, with the terrorist group on one side and the dangerous wildlife of the African jungle on the other. They were forced to travel on this plane. As soon as the plane took off, they breathed a sigh of relief. Everything seemed normal, and it looked like things were going fine. But suddenly, the plane began to shake. Everyone anxiously asked Grant what was happening. He calmly responded, "There's nothing to worry about. I've flown plenty of planes over long distances before. I know what I'm doing. The plane is fine. Just stay calm." However, Dr. Andrew, now angry, stepped forward and said, "I may not know much about flying, but I do know one thing: you're greedy. And you've," Dr. Andrew, frustrated, says, "you've overloaded the plane with too much luggage, and that's why it's vibrating. If this continues, the plane will crash soon." Grant dismissively replies, "There's nothing like that. Just sit down, buckle your seatbelt, and let me do my job." You don't understand how these things work, but moments later, the plane begins to shake violently, and a fire breaks out. It starts plummeting rapidly towards the ground. Within seconds, the plane crashes. Some passengers lose their lives in the wreckage, while the survivors are injured. Andrew, gathering his strength, stands up and looks around at the burning debris. Max survives, as does another man, but Max's friend doesn't make it. She dies in the crash. Andrew's wife and the leader also survive, though both are badly hurt. Andrew rushes to his wife, who is in terrible condition, trapped underneath heavy luggage and badly injured. Her leg is broken, and she is in a lot of pain. Andrew desperately tries to free her, but no matter how hard he tries, she remains stuck. Seeing this, Grant tells Andrew, "She won't be able to get out. Stop trying so hard and remove the luggage instead. And yes, your wife is in pain, so why don't you give her some alcohol?" Grant suggested. Andrew, furious, snapped back, "I don't like any of this. Stop talking nonsense and get out of here. I know what I need to do." And this plane crashed because of you. Meanwhile, Max buried his friend's body near the plane wreckage, hoping to protect it from being eaten by wild animals. The group started assessing their situation, realizing that they had crashed in an extremely dangerous area, inhabited by man-eating wild animals. They thought they were safe during the day because the jungle, which resembled a desert, was too hot for predators to hunt. But once night fell, their chances of survival would plummet. They needed to act fast. Aside from Dr. Andrew, 3 of them. including Grant, began planning to find the nearest village, which was about 20 to 30 kilometers away. Grant said, "We'll have to head southeast. The village should be that way." Max disagreed. "No, that's the wrong way. We should go southwest. I'm sure the village is in that direction." But Grant, holding the gun and acting as the leader, dismissed Max's idea. "If you value your lives, you'll follow me," he declared. Grant urged everyone to follow him, including Andrew, but Andrew refused. He wanted to stay with his injured wife. Despite the group's attempts to convince him, Andrew's wife reassured them, saying, "We believe in our fate, and we trust in God. He will save us." Andrew, deeply in love with his wife, couldn't leave her behind under any circumstances. He told the group, "If the village is truly close, bring back help. Until then, I'll stay here and take care of my wife." The others reluctantly began their journey toward the village, while Andrew and his wife stayed behind, sitting in the wreckage of the plane, waiting for help to arrive. His wife had lost almost all hope, seeming as though she was either waiting for rescue or accepting her fate. As they sat there, wild animals began to creep closer, watching them from a distance. Even though it was daytime, the animals could clearly see them. Meanwhile, Grant and the rest of the group found themselves lost in the desert landscape. Half the day had passed, and they still hadn't reached the village. Exhausted, their condition deteriorated from the heat and thirst. They collapsed onto the ground, unable to take another step. Grant, however, gave them water, and they pushed forward towards what seemed to be their final hill. As they walked further, they were stunned to realize that after traveling all this way, they were still surrounded by the vast desert-like wilderness. They had no idea how to return, meaning they were completely trapped. Max, frustrated by the situation, snatched the gun from Grant and angrily said, "Because of you, we're stuck here, and we're all going to die soon." Brandishing the gun, Max ordered everyone to follow his lead. "Now everyone will walk the path I choose." The others, however, still preferred to stay with Grant. They believed that if they retraced their steps, they could make their way back to the wrecked plane, and then they could try a different direction to reach the village. So the group turned back, leaving Max to go his own way. With immense difficulty, suffering from extreme thirst, the group eventually made it back to the plane. But what they saw there shocked them. Blood was everywhere. Andrew and his wife were missing. There were claw marks on the plane, which made them realize the horrifying truth: a lion had attacked them and made them its prey. Filled with sorrow over the deaths of Andrew and his wife, the group now grew terrified. This meant the lion was active even during the day and could strike again at any moment. Fearful for their lives, they began desperately searching for a way to survive. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a panicked Andrew suddenly grabs Grant by the collar, blaming him for everything that had gone wrong. Everyone believed that if Grant hadn't overloaded the plane, it wouldn't have crashed. Andrew, filled with rage, was just about to attack him when a young man fired a gun, sending Andrew flying backwards, saving Grant. It was then that the group discovered the truth: Grant had been smuggling an animal's horns, highly valuable on the black market. This illegal cargo was the reason for the plane's destruction. Grant was nothing more than a greedy smuggler. Meanwhile, Andrew built a makeshift grave for his wife from the broken pieces of the plane. He sat by it, overwhelmed with grief, crying for her. His friend Hyde sat beside him, trying to console him. Andrew, sobbing, said, "I regret that I couldn't save my wife. I should have tried harder. Maybe she could have survived." Hyde gently responded, "You tried against impossible odds. A lion. You couldn't have done anything more. Don't blame yourself. Your wife believed in fate, and this was her fate. You couldn't have changed it." As night began to fall, the danger grew. They knew they had to make it through the night somehow, or they would surely be hunted by the wild animals lurking around. They could already hear the distant growls of lions getting closer. Grant then spoke up. "There's only one way for us to survive the night." The pilot cabin was the only safe space, and the three of them had to decide who would stay outside. They started tossing coins to see which three would sit inside the cabin. Max's friend lost the toss, meaning he had to sit outside for the night. As soon as night fell, the boy lit a fire and sat outside the plane while the other three remained in the pilot cabin. They warned him, "Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. You must keep the fire burning because as long as the fire is alive, you will be safe. But the moment you close your eyes and the fire dies out, you're as good as dead." The others sat in the cabin, waiting for the night to pass, as they now knew the route to the village and they'd leave at dawn. During the night, Grant stepped outside for some reason and noticed that the boy was dozing off and the fire was dying. Alarmed, he rushed over, shook the boy awake, and said, "Wake up. If you want to survive, keep the fire going." Grant went back to the cabin, but the boy, exhausted from fatigue, eventually fell asleep again. The fire completely died out, leaving the area in darkness. In the shadows, the group could see the glowing eyes of something watching them. It was none other than lions creeping closer to the plane. Their loud growls echoed through the cabin, and the three inside could hear them. Andrew, being kind-hearted, felt a deep sense of dread as he realized what was about to happen. Andrew felt awful for the boy. He wanted to save him, but with so many lions outside, there was nothing they could do. Despite the danger, Andrew finally opened the cabin door. A lion immediately tried to force its way in. The group struggled together to keep it out, but the lion was so strong it began breaking through the cabin. Suddenly, a snake, which had slithered into the cabin, bit Head. In the chaos, they managed to close the door just in time. Andrew quickly tied a rope around Head's leg and made a cut to let the blood flow, allowing the snake's venom to drain out, saving Head's life. However, Head's condition was critical, and they knew he was in bad shape. When morning came, they opened the cabin door to find that their friend, the one who had sat outside, was gone, taken by the lions. Realizing they had no other choice, the group decided to head toward the village, knowing that during the daytime, they were safer from predators. However, after everything Andrew had seen, he was broken. He sat by a tree, completely defeated. "I can't go with you," he told the others. "I've lost all hope. This is my fate. I want to be with my wife. I'll wait for death here. I've seen people become food for lions, and I can't bear to watch anymore." As Andrew gathered his strength, the others made their way toward the village. They had gone only a short distance when they spotted a vehicle approaching. Excited, they began to shout and wave to get the driver's attention, believing that help was finally here. But to their shock, the vehicle came to a stop right in front of Andrew, revealing that it was the terrorist group searching for Americans. They wasted no time in confronting Andrew, demanding, "What are you doing on our land? Are you here to steal from us? You take our goods and smuggle them back to your country." Head and Grant stepped forward, defending Andrew. "Wait. He's a doctor. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's here to help you," and was just about to leave. "You shouldn't harm him, however." The terrorists discovered a horn from a wild animal that had been found in the plane, which only fueled their anger. They accused Andrew, "You're a smuggler, taking our resources and selling them in America." Just then, Gunn interjected, "This is my plane. All this stuff belongs to me, and I'm the one smuggling. Andrew has done nothing." Hearing this, someone suggested, "Then we should kill Granham." Head responded, "Why? Why should we kill him? Are you some kind of terrorist? You are a noble person living on this land, and we respect you." Head believed they could change the terrorists' mind, but the terrorists proved them wrong by shooting Head in the face, showing that they truly were terrorists with no mercy for human life. They brutally mistreated the group afterward. One of the terrorists left to get a truck, planning to take them away for further torture. 2 terrorists stayed behind. One of them turned to Andrew and said, "All right, let's make a deal. I'll count to 10, and you need to run. After I count to 10, I'll shoot. Sound good? Now go on, run." Get up and run, but Andrew didn't run. He had already lost all hope and felt no reason to flee. The terrorists grew frustrated and began taunting him, showing water and laughing at him. When the terrorists realized that both Andrew and Granham had completely given up, they sat down against the wall, soon falling asleep. Granham turned to Andrew and whispered, "I'm a fighter. I won't give up that easily." Saying, "I won't die," Granham quietly approached the terrorists. He reached for the gun, but one of the terrorists woke up just as Granham was about to grab it. The terrorist tried to shoot, but it turned out the gun wasn't loaded. The second terrorist also woke up, but before he could fire, Andrew tackled him, and they struggled for the gun. Shots were fired, and both terrorists were killed in the chaos. Granham then said to Andrew, "Look, we've killed them both, so now you have to come with me. You have to come with me. You have to fill your wife's dream, and I need to change myself. Give me a chance to repent for all my sins. Come with me, and I'll help you reach the city where you can save thousands of patients." Andrew, though weak, agreed to go with Granham. They started moving forward despite Andrew's deteriorating condition. As they neared the village, they saw a small rocky hill that they needed to climb to get to the other side. Granham, with great effort, helped Andrew up the hill. But then, what did they see? Ferocious lions were coming toward them from the other side. The lions had caught the scent of blood and began moving toward the hill. Fortunately, since Andrew and Granham were hiding atop the hill, the lions couldn't see them and eventually turned back. As they started moving, birds began circling above them. The wind changed direction, and the lions once again caught their scent, heading toward them. A scorpion crawled onto Andrew, reaching his face, but he remained completely still. Granham carefully tried to remove the scorpion, but just then, a stone fell from the hill, confirming to the lions that there was something up there for them to eat. The lions started climbing up with renewed determination. Seeing this, Granham smeared Andrew's blood on his own body and said, "Look, I've done a lot of bad things in my life, and today I want to wash away my sins. I'll cover myself in blood and go to the lions. By sacrificing myself, I'll save your life. The lions will hunt me, and you'll have a chance to escape. Promise me that you'll get up and make it to the village." Saying this, Granham screamed, drawing the lions' attention as he climbed up the hill and ran down the other side. The lions immediately pounced on him and devoured him. Andrew, now alone, started walking toward the village. After walking for a long time, he collapsed from exhaustion and thirst. As he lay there, he saw 2 wild animals approaching him, clearly intending to eat him. Looking up at the sky, Andrew said, "Is this really how it ends for me? Is it written in my fate to die at the hands of these worthless scavengers?" Andrew muttered to himself, "At least if it were a lion, it would be an honorable death." With renewed determination, he stood up again, filled with courage. The wild animals began to rush toward him, but suddenly the sound of thunder scared them away. It started raining, and Andrew collapsed on the ground, drinking the rainwater to quench his long-standing thirst. Exhausted, he soon lost consciousness. When Andrew opened his eyes again, he found his companion standing before him, the same person who had earlier warned him about the terrorists. His companion helped him up, supporting him and saving his life. Andrew was finally safe. His fate was not to die but to survive, as his courage had prevailed in the end. He knew he would now make it to the village. And with that, this chapter of the story comes to a close.